Hello, everybody. So in today's training, we're going to talk about how to add final expense to your Medicare clients and why you want to do it. So let's share the screen here. All right. So let's go through our agenda. So in today's training, we're gonna cover why you want to call all of your Medicare clients back 7 days after you've written the policy. And then we're going to go through how to understand the different types of final expense life insurance. Then we're going to talk about how to bring it up with your clients, and then we're going to close it down by how to quote it, and then making sure that you have the right products to meet the needs for your Medicare clients. So let's go to some of the training content that we've developed inside of our CRM. So in our selling platform, in our Go High Level account that we give out free to our clients, we have lots of tools in here, and we are going to find the life insurance background there. So let's pull that up. All right. So let's go through the different types of life insurance. Give you guys a little bit of a background. All right. So there's basically 4 types of life insurance for final expense. One is day one coverage or level, right? The type of final expense policy that you'll qualify for generally depends on your health and age. Day one coverage or level coverage offers immediate full benefits but requires a health questionnaire. We go from day one coverage, which is the best type of life insurance, to graded and modified. There's typically a waiting period for natural death, offering partial benefits, and then guaranteed issue life insurance is going to be for those people that have more serious health conditions, comes with a higher premium. So let's talk about level or day one coverage. All right. So level or day one coverage, this type of policy provides immediate full coverage for both natural and accidental death for the very first day the policy is in effect. It's designed for people in relatively good health and generally has the lowest premiums amongst the final expense options. While a medical exam is not typically required, you will need to answer health questions during the application process. And we'll go through that at a later step. So if your Medicare client qualifies for day one coverage, it's going to be the most cost-effective final expense option. Now, if they don't qualify for level, then we're going to look at a graded benefit policy. And this is designed for individuals that have some health conditions that might make them ineligible for day one coverage. Again, day one coverage simply pays out the day the policy is in effect. Why graded and modified are different is because there's going to be a waiting period of 2 to 3 years before the full death benefit is paid out. If the death occurs within the waiting period due to natural causes, your beneficiaries will only receive a portion of the death benefit, often a percentage of the full amount, or a return on premium plus interest. So it could pay out 30%, 50%, 70%, depending on when your client passes away. Now, if a death is accidental, right, if there's a car crash or if there's something that they get hit by lightning, something crazy, the full death benefit is usually paid immediately. So once the waiting period is over, the full death benefit becomes available regardless of the cause of death. Graded policies are easier to qualify for day one coverage, but as you would think, would generally have higher premiums. All right, modified is similar to graded, right? And they have a waiting period before the full death benefit is payable for natural death. They're also designed for individuals with more serious health concerns that prevent them from qualifying from day one or graded coverage. During the waiting period, typically 2 years, if the insured died of natural causes, the policy will pay a return on premium plus a predetermined percentage of interest. So it would be all the money that they paid into the policy plus usually 10%. However, if the death is caused by accidental causes within the waiting period, the full death benefit is usually paid out immediately. So let's talk about guarantee issue. Guarantee issue life insurance, also known as guaranteed acceptance life insurance, is designed for individuals who cannot qualify for any other type of life insurance due to severe health conditions or a terminal illness. These policies do not require a medical exam or a health question for approval, and they typically have the highest premium, and they also offer coverage that's a little bit lower in terms of the amount that you could buy compared to a day one or a level. Typically, there's a 2 to 3 year waiting period upon natural death. During the waiting period, again, if the insured dies of natural causes, the beneficiaries typically receive a refund of the premiums paid plus a small amount of interest, usually 10%. If death is due to accidental causes, just like the other policies, the full death benefit is usually paid out almost immediately. So I can give you an example. My wife's mother bought a guarantee issue policy, and she was recently diagnosed with breast cancer. She had diabetes. She had a bunch of other things. And so we went with a Gerber guarantee issue policy for her. After we sat down with her and helped her with her Medicare Advantage plan, right, she thought it was a good idea to pick one up. We decided to pay for it. And it turned out to be one of the better decisions we made. So when he passed away, we just paid for the entire cost of the burial, and we also paid for the lunch that the family went out to afterwards. We didn't have to argue with her sister and her brother about who's paying for something. So it was the best money that we ever spent. We got the check within like 2 weeks, and it was something that I'm glad that we took care of. And if you talk to your clients, it really is something that they don't want their kids to have to pay for. So selling life insurance with stories is always the best way to position them. All right, so let's go through what general underwriting questions look like that would disqualify somebody for day one coverage. Right, so these are the general questions that I pulled off one of the final expense, simplified issue or day one coverage. So if your client has lung disease, COPD, or if they're using an inhaler or oxygen, they would typically struggle to get day one coverage, and they would get pushed probably towards a graded or modified policy. Other conditions that would prevent them from getting day one coverage would be heart attack, stroke, blood clots, heart failure, cardiomyopathy, if they've had a recent diagnosis of cancer, um, uh, diabetics would generally get graded up, but not always. Um, let's see, kidney issues, neuropathy, retinopathy, or amputations associated with diabetes, any type of kidney or liver issues. Somebody has a severe form of depression, schizophrenia, bipolar, memory issues like dementia or Alzheimer's would get you to a graded or modified policy. Alcohol or drug abuse, any type of organ or tissue transplant, any type of serious autoimmune disease like lupus, or if they've recently tested positive or have tested positive for HIV or AIDS. If they've had any felonies or DUIs, or the license suspended or revoked, that will typically rate them up, or not give them the ability to buy life insurance. If they've been hospitalized, these are things that would typically get somebody to graded, modified, or guarantee issue. And then you never want to put in an application without doing a health needs assessment with your client. And so if a client is interested in getting a life insurance policy through you, you're going to want to get a full list of medications that they're currently taking or they have taken in the last 12 to 24 months, and ask them why they're taking those medications. Like, what's the purpose of the prescription? So once you have the list of medications and prescriptions, you could generally tell the if they're going to qualify for level or day one coverage. All right. So let's go through the costs of a funeral. We know that the burial costs have gone up over the years. So you're looking at anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 to cover the burial costs of service. And, typically people get together at a social event. So, we typically don't quote anything less than 10,000 unless there's a real problem with paying for it. So cremation, if they're not going to get buried, would be $7,000 to $15,000. And so, um, you know, developing the quote is going to be based on which way, right, they're going to go in terms of cremation or if they're going to get a full burial with the service. So that's a little bit of a background on what you need to know in terms of the different types of life insurance, what the underwriting procedure is, what questions you have to ask, why you need to get medications, and then determining if they are going to go for a burial or cremation. So that's a little bit of a background. Now we're going to transition and we're going to cover how you could build this into your 7-day follow-up call. And again, we have all this information in our free Go High Level CRM called Medicare Helper. And all this information is widely available. So we recommend a 7-day call after you've written your Medicare client, and this is a script that our agents follow. Hey, my name is Devin. I helped you last week with your Medicare Advantage plan. How are you? And, have you received your identification cards in the mail? Simple, super easy to give. And again, you're making an outbound call just to make sure that their Medicare policy, their Medicare Advantage policy has issued, and if they have any questions. Now, if you're writing a Medicaid client, or if they're a dual, right, same thing. You're going to say, hey, I'm calling regarding your Aetna dual special needs plan. I also want to know if you received your extra benefits card. So duals, right, dual clients are going to not only get their identification card, but they're also going to be getting an extra benefits card. And so we want to make sure that they've received both of those cards. So great. I'm glad you set them up. We're going to ask them, did you have a chance to activate your extra benefits card? Now, all the Medicaid plans, the dual plans, make the client register their extra benefits card. Some people do it, and some people don't. If they don't, then you're going to want to help them activate their dual benefits extra benefits card so that they can start using it. This will help your client with retention and keeping the plan. And so if they have an issue and they can't see a doctor and they can't get the free grocery card, then they're more likely to give up the plan without even talking to you. So you're just being a good agent by calling them 7 days later. Number one, you're going to check in Sunfire or Integrity Connect and make sure that the case issued. And then you're going to make sure they got their ID cards and they have their extra benefits card. If they don't, then you have the opportunity to troubleshoot it and save the case. All right, so let's assume that they have all the cards. At this point, you're going to review their copays. You're going to review their OTC benefit if they have a food card, if they're a dual, and if there's a dental component or a vision component, you want to review those extra benefits with them. And then at this point, right, you're going to transition to life insurance. So if nothing else comes up and you don't need to provide clarification, right, you're just going to come in and say, listen, I also want to see where you are with life insurance because I also assist my clients with reviewing their current life insurance. So this pitch assumes that they have life insurance, whether they have it or not. We're just going under the assumption that they have it. I'm assuming you have a policy to cover your funeral. When was the last time someone did a life insurance review for you? So this could go two ways. If they have a life insurance policy, right, then you're going to ask them who they have it with and how much they're paying. Sometimes they'll want more coverage. So if they picked out a $5,000, $7,000, or $10,000 policy, right, you could offer them more coverage. Or they may have got or received graded or guarantee issue. And typically these are going to be more expensive than level. So if they say they have life insurance, don't give up on the case. Just do a little bit of a deep dive and find out what they have, how much coverage it is, and what they're paying. You can't beat it, you can't beat it. If they say, no, I don't have life insurance, then you're going to pivot and say, I think you would agree it's important to make sure your loved ones are protected. So, a low income or a middle income person generally doesn't want to put the burden of paying for a funeral or cremation onto a family member or a loved one or a sister. So, go through why they should have life insurance. So most of our clients have life insurance for several important reasons. Final expenses, right? We want to make sure that the burial costs are covered and not left to the kids or the family. And any financial bills you may have, like debts when you pass on, right? Helping your family financially after you've passed is a key concern. And I know that might sound morbid, but I think you would agree it's best to have a plan, as none of us are going to live forever. And you do not want to put your financial burden on your kids or other family members. So just ask them a follow-up question here. Have you set up a plan to pay for your funeral expenses, or do you currently have anything in place? Does anyone currently rely on you for income? Would they face a financial trouble if you are no longer around? So a lot of low income, middle income mothers have, kids that are the same financial situation as them. And so would they face financial trouble if you were no longer around, right? We're trying to create a need for them to say, hey, you could pass on money tax-free, $10,000, $15,000, or $20,000 to your kids upon your passing. The other thing is some people have a debt, like a mortgage or bills or credit card expense, and this is going to roll down to their kids. So I'm sure that they wouldn't want to put that burden on their family. Would you like to leave money to your family or perhaps a charity when you pass on? Given these considerations, it might be worthwhile to explore how a final expense policy could provide you and your family with peace of mind. So we know that the average funeral cost can cost between $10,000 to $20,000, or cremation could cost anywhere between $7,000 and $15,000. Is this something that you've thought about? Or you might be interested in learning a bit more about how it works. There's no obligation, and I'd be happy to give you a quote to see if this is something that can fit into your current budget. So if they say yes, you say great. Don't give them a price. At this point, you're going to want to go through some basic underwriting. Ask them for a list of medications or chronic conditions, because these plans have to be underwritten. So at this point, right, you've explained and had a good conversation with them about the value of life insurance, protecting their family from future financial obligations, and then you've done a basic underwriting on their medications and chronic conditions. So at this point, we're going to log into our quote engine, and we're going to run a quote for them. All right. So this is Insurance Toolkits. At the top, we are going to put in a $10,000 benefit, and we're going to choose level, graded, modified, and then we're going to put in their gender, the state, and how old they are. And then we're going to put in get quote, and so we're going to run a 65 female, $10,000 face amount, and we see the range is going to be between $40 and $50. And the quote engine will tell you what the lowest price company is. So you can see on the screen, Transamerica, Mutual of Omaha generally are lower cost options. Aflac, Corebridge, Transamerica, Aetna, Royal Neighbors, which is a good product to write for diabetics. Ascendo or CVS is around $47. And so if you're a Medicare agent, you may already be appointed with Transamerica, Mutual of Omaha, Aflac, Aetna, or even Bankers Fidelity. And so these are products that you already have access to, assuming that you have an active life insurance license and you've taken your AML or anti-money laundering test. If you have those in place, you can start quoting that right away. So let's say, yeah, I could afford, a $41 policy. And if they say that's too low, you could just go back up and increase the amount of the face amount, put in $20,000 and hit requote. And you see that the price goes from basically $41 to $80. So the price is typically generally pretty linear for a level policy. So let's say that they tell you that they have diabetes, right? So we're just going to put in some diabetic medications, metformin. Then it's going to ask you a couple of questions about their diabetes. Let's say they have neuropathy. Then it's going to ask you the last time that you filled the metformin. You're going to put in that. And then they're going to ask if you have uncontrolled diabetes. Let's just say no. And then they're going to ask about your client's most recent hemoglobin A1C levels. Hemoglobin A1C is just an industry or medical terminology that looks at your client's last 3 months. And if they're diabetic, they probably know what their hemoglobin A1C is. So let's say no. What's the prospect rating between 8 and 8.5? Let's put no. And then we're going to hit get quote again. Right. And we're going to go to just take it back to 10,000. Get quote. Right. And we're going to see Corebridge, Royal Neighbors, and Transamerica come up most favorably for diabetics, right? And you see that it's a standard and it's not going to be preferred or level. But these prices are pretty competitive for a diabetic. So on top of your Medicare supplement contracts that you have, it's probably a good idea to have Corebridge because they're really good for guarantee issue, and Royal Neighbors and Transamerica typically are pretty good for diabetics. So relatively pretty easy once you understand the process on who you want to go with. And the biggest thing about selling life insurance and final expense to your Medicare clients is just calling them back, making sure that their coverage is in place. And then at that point, you could do a cross-sell opportunity with final expense, dental, cancer, hospital indemnity, right? As insurance agents, we want to be their insurance agent. We just don't want to sell them their Medicare, right? It's going to be much more profitable for you. We know there's tons of market turbulence right now in the Medicare Advantage space. And so you have the opportunity, right, to write more products per client and earn more revenue per client. And it's a no-brainer to start bringing this up to your clients once you get comfortable with the process. So, how many clients in the last year did you have to write a non-commissionable plan for? So we have agents that help the client with the non-commissionable plan and then transition to cancer, heart attack, and stroke, hospital indemnity, and final expense. And, if you're not bringing this up, you're just leaving tons of money on the table. The other thing, we started making outbound calls to our clients in our agency, and we were surprised that a lot of these clients already have life insurance. So they're buying their product, they're just not buying it with you. And if you're their Medicare client, why are they not buying that product with you or through you? The reason why is they don't know about you, that you sell life insurance, or they've thought about it and have just never put the money aside for life insurance. So it's kind of a no-brainer, right, to start bringing this up to your clients. It's not that complicated, and you don't need a one-call close, right? You don't need to write this on the call. So if you have the wherewithal to bring it up to your client, right, then you can get the medications, find out if they have the budget, and if there's a need, if you're an agent that works with us, we'd be happy to quote it for you. And so get comfortable with the script, get comfortable with how to quote, right? Pick some carriers to get started with. You probably already have Aetna and HealthSpring or Aflac or Mutual of Omaha or Bankers Fidelity. You can start quoting with them right away, right? We also think that you should look at some other carriers for other chronic conditions like diabetes. Royal and Neighbors and Transamerica are really good. Corbridge and Gerber are really good for guarantee issue. So if we could help you get started in the final expense space, it's an absolute no-brainer. Simply call your clients back after 7 days and then call our office to see if we can help you with the process with your first couple of clients. So give us a call. You see our number on the line, ask for Zaniette, and she'll schedule some time with me. And we would love to help you grow your business by offering life insurance.